Welcome to WebUps. This video is about Drupal 8 graphical interface. So what we need to do is explore Drupal as a basic user. Okay, so for those who don't know anything about Drupal, this is a good starting point. Okay, so I highly suggest you start playing around with the graphical interface before going to code first. Okay. So what you have in here is, this is a default Drupal installation. All right. So let's start with the content. So content is, by default, there's an article page for blogging, and there's a basic page, right? And this content is available in structure. And the way I normally see it, so if you know anything about database, or if you've taken college classes and you've taken database, so if you go to content types, right, there's an article page, right? So I would see this like a table, right? Even though it is not in the database the way it's designed, but I would see it as a table to keep it simple, right? And this will be, so for example, this is a table called article, and this is the fields. There's a body, okay, and the field type is text, and there's a comment, okay. So article is normally used for blogging, right? So you can comment, there's a comment, there's an image, all right, and tagging. Tagging is grouping. That's a simple term for it, right? So there's a field type of tagging. So let's say, just for the sake of this demonstration, let me create a content type of, and this is there's also a basic page. So the basic page is normally pages that's you don't use for categorization, like your some pages, and main pages that you don't want to group them by anything. Basic page is good for that. All right. And then, so let's go ahead and create a content type. So let's say I have a table named person. Okay. Okay. And here I would put, instead of title, full name. Right. There's a way to, this is just for demo, but you can name it whatever you want, the default title. Publishing option, disable revision, display author and date. I always turn this on so, for accountability, whoever creating it, you can track. And add to main navigation node. So we have a table name, person. So what does the person have? As a first name, last name, right? Okay. But here by default, there's like a body text, right? So let's add a first name and last name first, and then I'll come back to this. So let's add a first name. So what is a first name and last name? So it's a text. Am I right? So how long is the text? And it's not formatted text plain. I don't think name would be that long. I think text plain is around 255 characters. So I would say first name, right? First name. Is first name like that? Is first name one word? First name. See, sometimes they write it as one word, but then sometimes they write it as two words. Anyway, that's unrelated. So let's say first name. First name. Say it's 255. You can increase it. So let's increase that to 500 because some people have weird names. Okay. 500 and So we can have a name default if you want, but you know, not right now. Of course, let's make this required. So that means if you make it required, that means nobody can input anything unless they put the first name. Okay, and let's add another. It's a text again. Last name. Last name. All right. So let's make it 500 again. All right. What's good about setting it into the desired length that you have? I mean, you can put 1 million here, but the desired length should be the maximum that you think it would be, right? So if you think it's 1,000, then put 1,000, right? The idea is if you put way too much beyond that, is that when you do a database query, it takes a lot longer, right? So you have to be wise how much is the length you're putting in there, right? So let's say 500. All right, and that's required. And nowadays everybody have email, so let's add a field. Is there a field called email? There you go. There's a field called email. All right, email. Okay. So normally there's one, but you can have more. Yeah. Okay, let's do one for now. Okay. And so let me see what else do we have. So for now, this is the default fields. Okay. Um, so fields that you used before, you can reuse it. All right. So that means the field that you use, if you reuse it, then in the backend, they're just referencing the table name that you created. So let's do that for now. So let's go back. So content type. So we have a person, and the person has 4 fields, right? So we have body, email, first name. So the body, we could delete it, okay? Or we could edit it and write notes about that person, okay? We could do that, okay? Now there's 2 tabs here, right? So here, since there's 2 tabs, so when you add a content, let's say person, see it's full name, notes, first name, last name, email. You see how that thing is arranged? It's kind of weird. So if you go here in manage form, this is how you arrange that, okay? So full name, first name, last name, email, and notes, right? The rest of this, normally they don't show up, okay, in the graphical interface, but okay, so if we do that, then we add a new person. So now it looks a little bit better. Full name, first name, last name, email, notes. All right. Here, in the notes, keep in mind you can have basic HTML or full HTML. I normally leave it a basic for higher security. Okay. So let's do a full name. Oops. John Doe. John Doe. J Doe at gmail.com. Right? So first member. Let's just put a comment. Alright. Boom. Alright, so we have first name Doe, last name John Doe. Okay, that's the full name because that's the way we put the title. Okay, and then we have first name, last name, and email. And we did put a notes. How come the notes didn't show up? So sometimes if it doesn't show up, go to manage display. Right? So the notes, just say trim. Oh, no. So there's a default. So the default is the node page and the teaser page. So here is a teaser page, right? So if you view it, edit. What's the view? Oh, there you go. Here's the notes. This is the node view, right? So that's the node view, and this is the, oh, that's also the node view. So the teaser view will be, so the teaser view is like the summary view. So here there's a default view. So if you look at this, your John Doe, let's see that again. So what's showing up is first member, so the comment showed up first, the body. So you don't want that. So you want that in the end. Okay, if you want to have, if there's any links, show them up at the bottom. Let's see. Alright, so first name, last name. So here you could also arrange, if you want the label, you could hide it. You don't need it. Okay, hide it. It's pretty much self-explanatory why. So first name, last name, right? If you want to do something like that. Okay. So there's a format. Right now it's plain text. But if you want to do some algorithm, like let's say a code to capitalize it, you can do it from, PHP side, JavaScript side, or CSS side. And in a teaser view, you can have just the email, or just teaser view. So I don't think there's a default teaser view. Let me see. I don't think there's a default teaser view. So for now, there's no teaser view. I'll show you that later. But this is a default node view. The teaser view is like a summary view. So if you like go to Google, right, and you go to news, right, this will be the teaser view, right? So you just have title and a link, right? You could have something like that. So the teaser is like this, like the summary view of it. Okay, so that's how you manage it in structure, content types, manage fields, and manage display. And there's two types of display: the default node view, that's the whole page view, and the teaser view, the summary view. Okay, and you can display whatever you want. Okay, so the next is, now we know how to use the content. So we created a content, right? So we have a content type of person now, and we added a content person. Okay, now in structure, let me just add something up in structure. Content types, person, manage fields, click edit. I just want to make sure I did not miss anything. I guess that's it. So basically that's, this is a good starting point. The files is if you want to upload a file and you want to use that file in different pages of your website. The comments is normally used for blogging, like with the article page. If somebody commented out, it would show up here. So that's how I normally use the structure. That's how I normally create the content type. Okay, and then you add a content. So first create a content type, then add a content. That's the step. The second is menus, right? So by default is a main navigation. So I normally leave it home. So there's a home, right? There's a navigation, and there's a link in it. So you can also go from here, edit menu, right? And this is what you have, right? So user account menu. This is a user account menu. But there's like, if you go back to the site, this is like, I think the main menu. Yeah, main navigation, right? And you can add a link and whatever your link you want to have. So let's say about page, about, and then /about. That's how easy it is, right? And so we don't have a page, so let's create a page. Content, add a content, add a basic page, about, right? And alias is by default it's on in Drupal, so you can just say about. And let's do a lorem ipsum. So lorem ipsum, by the way, if you're not a developer yet, it's just a sample text so that at least that you can copy and you can paste it, so at least you see something. Okay, click save, right? So now when you go to /about, so there's about and there's home, right? Home, about, boom, there you go. Now if you are logged out, you would see something like this. Okay, so now let's arrange that. Let's switch them around. So we go structure, menus, main menu, and swap them. Okay, let's go back, view it, boom, home, about, right? So, and next is taxonomy. So taxonomy is normally used for like grouping. Okay. For example, a person could be grouped as teacher versus student, right? So let's do that. So in structure, let's group that person into, let's split them into two categories. Okay. So we add a field. First, we need to create a taxonomy first. Taxonomy, right? So a lot of times per table, I create my own separate tags for it, just to keep it clean. So let's say person category. Person category. You copy that. Boom, boom. So add a term. So there could be two types of or more. So this thing could be just grouping, like for example, teacher. So, and you can make it hierarchical if you want, right? So for example, employee, employee. And a lot of times I normally do it like /employee in the URL, right? Hit publish. Okay. Now let me create another grouping called student. I don't know anything about student, right? So you can have /student in the URL. Okay. And person employee. So we created an employee earlier. So there could be a teacher. Staff. Let's just say teacher for now. Alright. So there's a teacher, grouping of teacher. And relationship. Now we can establish a relationship. So a teacher belongs to a employee, right? So we should do a URL something like this. Employee /teacher. Okay. Now we have that grouping. So it looks like hierarchical going to the right. Okay. And then, let's go back to the teacher. Let's make sure that this one is selected. Okay, the parent. Okay. And let's okay. You can have unlimited, but for this is to keep it simple. Just have one, right? And this is a person category. Okay. So we have the person category. So I just typed it earlier, person category, so that it create a unique name. Okay, so that you know that that unique name is attached to the person. See that? Machine name. So FYI, if you want to be a future programmer, try to use lowercase and underscore for all your folders and files. Okay, folders and files as much as possible, lowercase. Okay, and underscore. So we have that. So let's do the form and let's move the category above here, right? And now let's create two-person. Mary Jane. Mary Jane. mjane@gmail.com. Okay. She's a teacher. Okay. Science teacher. There you go. It's a notes. Okay. Science teacher. So category is student, no teacher. Right, teacher. Okay. The 3 is just ignore that. That's a category number. You can programmatically remove it, but for now, let's not remove it. So she's a teacher. So let's add another category. Let's edit John Doe and let's make John Doe a student. Okay. First student. How's that? Okay. John Doe now is the first student. So student. Okay. And let's add an administrator. And that's Ralph King. Ralph King King at gmail.com. So first administrator and category is administration. Okay. So now we have those category, right? Okay. Now we have those categories. So now we have this the category right here, person. If we list it. Okay. There's an administration. If you look at it, Ralph King, and there's an email, right? And if you are in public view, you would see Ralph King and then email, right? This is the teaser view that I was talking about earlier. So the teaser view, remember the structure, content types, person, manage display in the teaser. You only have email and links in there. That's why those things showed up. Those are the only things that showed up. So now you have those, right? So this is administration. So if you have 2 administration, so let's add another administration guy. Add administration person. Rick James. Alright. Rick James. Alright, James at gmail.com. So second administrator. Okay, so let's add him in administration. Okay, save. Boom. So this is Rick James, full node, and this is a list of administration. Okay, so you get the gist. So now you group them. All right. You don't see all the person. You only see part of the person. And see how the URL is nice. Employee. Now if you go here and you remove that employee, let me just post something message me. All right, where were we? So employee, all of them should show up here. Okay, by default it doesn't, but you can configure this view. All right, so we have a default view. So the view is so the view is So this is the default view and showing the taxonomy term that it's supposed to belong to. The teaser. And if they belong to the term. So if it doesn't, it should cascade, because person belongs to, administration belongs to employee. So the employee, so if we go person, if we go to employee, it should list all of them in here. But somehow it doesn't. Okay. So the criteria is, you can add a criteria. So I think it's cascade. Let's solve that later. But it should cascade and it should group them like this. Right? But you got the idea of how to use the taxonomy. So that's how to use the taxonomy. So now you know how to use the taxonomy and then how to use the main menu. So now since you have the taxonomy, let's say administration, right? Now you can add this link to your page. Right? So you can go to menus, in the main navigation. So you can add a link called administration. Right? You gotta make sure that's at the bottom. It's good. Click home. Now you have administration. Okay. Now the read more, see that? The teaser view has a read more. You can click on it and boom, and you can go back to administration. Okay. See, from here, there's a link to a group of them. Okay. So that's that. So the next is, let me see, what is this display mode? I know normally don't use the display mode and view mode. A lot of times I already got, just the teaser and the full node. That's good enough for me, but you can create your own. Views is normally for querying database, right? So if you're a programmer, normally have to write the code, but in Drupal it's pretty sweet. You can query whatever you want. So let's say, since earlier we don't have that person, employee, right? So now we have to have a list of employee for that page, right? So we go view name, list of employee, right? And content type of person. So let's create a block, right? So we can drag it whatever page. So page, it will create a page, a separate page of your query result, right? Query result means what you're searching in the database. So this is, so let's say here, so this is your code and this is the database, right? So views is working with the database, is grabbing data from your database. Okay, so that's the job of the view. So you go here, wow, where are we at? And let's create a block. So a block is separate from the page. Page has its own URL, right? Block doesn't have. You can drag them in any pages you want. You can put them in any pages you want. So that's block. Okay, how many items? You can have 5 or more. Okay, and let's leave it at default. Okay, so we have here Rick, James, Ralph, King, right? Because those are the type of um, person. Okay, so we have to filter it some more by taxonomy. Has taxonomy term of person is one of employee, right? Okay, I think I made a mistake. Let me see. Let me just redo it again. So add employee has taxonomy terms with depth. How's that? Employee. Let me just see what I have in views. Let me try this taxonomy. If it has selected terms. Let's try that. Employee. Right, there you go. That's how you do it. And click save. Now you have a list of those employees, right? Now, since we have this and it didn't show up in employee tab earlier, the default taxonomy, nothing showed up in the employee. Right, nothing showed up here. Now you can go to employee. Okay, so nothing showed up here, correct? Now let's drag that. So what we need to do is we need to go to blocks. Okay, since we created that view, okay, list of employee, let's add that block into the content. Place block and start it list of employee, and let's attach it only to content type of person. Any page, but for listed pages only. Okay, let's show it up for this URL. Boom. Right? So if we go here, refresh, boom, you see all of them, right? So you see a list of employees, right? You can go here, administration, right? And if you want to add that to the URL, feel free to do so. Now you only see the link in here. That's because in the view, if we edit the view, okay, you only have a title, a link title in there. Now you can customize this. You can add first name. Okay, let's just test that. Plain text. Okay, you can have something like that. Okay, and you can edit as much as you want. All right, or what you can do is, there's a fancy thing. All right, so there's a title in here, correct? But watch this trick. Okay, I'm going to exclude this to the display. Let's link to content. Alright, I'm going to exclude that, but in the first name, I can rewrite the result. Okay, I'm going to override it. Okay, and I can put the title in here. So I can put, so there's a placement patterns. This is token patterns. So you can create whatever you want. So you can have a tag in here. So make sure you have allowed tags in here. B. So if you want to bold the first name, right? You can customize this in the editor. You can do the title, which is the title is the link, right? Earlier, you can have something like that, and you display it. So you hide the first one, but in here you customize it. Right? So you have Rick James. So plain text showed up. So let's go back and edit that. Let's turn that into a link. Okay. So it's the title that we have to turn into a link. It's not, again, it's not displaying in the title, but this is the output of it, but you're not displaying it, and then you display it in here, but then you rewrite it and you have the tag in here. That's what it showed up like that. Okay, so now you know how to use views, you know how to use taxonomy, you know how to use blocks. Okay, I normally don't use contact forms in this, for security. I normally use for web forms, but that's that. And appearance is themes. You want to control the themes. Okay, if you have a different theme. So right now it's Bartek. So let's try this set as default administration theme. So this is your administration theme. So it is the administration theme already. So this is the default theme and the administration theme. So if you go back to the site, it should look different, right? No. It's like this. So it's not even themed properly, right? So it's not good for administration, for a default theme. So we can use this as default. Let's try that. Back to the site. Okay, that looks a little bit better, this theme. Okay, so, and if you want to have your own theme, just set it. So administration is the one when you're in the back end controlling stuff. The default theme is what shows up, in the front for anonymous users. Okay, so that's a appearance. Settings, you can have settings that depends on your theme. It supports it. Okay, um, you can configure that. Um, Extend is if you want to add and remove a module. In the old Drupal, you only have one page, and you can add and remove from here, right? You can add and remove, but sometimes you can accidentally unclick it, and then click save. So it's nice that they separate the page now. Okay, so this is how you install a module, right? To install a module, you can go to, like, for example, Path Author, right? So we're going to download Drupal Path Author. So if we have a Path Author, so I already have this module downloaded, but if you want, you can just click download. Okay, you download from here, you unzip it, Control C, get desktop, Drupal 8 testing modules. And since this is a contributed modules, you want to put this inside the contrib folder and paste it there, right? And since we have a new files in there, what do we have to do? Drush CR. Okay. Okay. Now if we go here and extend again and refresh, Path Author. Okay. It says CTools, you have to install those, and you have to install some of them. But you get the idea. So that's how you install and download. But sometimes there's a requirement, so you have to download the requirements and install them too. And you do the same process and click save and install, and then do another Drush CR. Okay, so that's that. That's how to install module. Here is like configuring almost anything in the site, but a better view. Okay, so shortcuts, if you want to have your favorite shortcuts, you can have it here. You can edit it. You can add your shortcuts. That's not a big deal. Keep in mind when you're maintaining your site, where's that maintenance? Maintenance mode. Turn that into a maintenance mode. Boom. Save. Okay. And text formats and editors. In the graphical interface, remember we have this basic restricted full plain. You can configure it. Let's see here. You're restricted. You can configure it as to, or basic. Let me see. Like what's the allowed tags. Okay. You can configure what they can use. If you don't put it in there, it'll strip it off. Okay. So go here, and then in people, right? So people, by default, there's an administrator. Okay. And by default, there's also administrator and your user, the first user created. So that's by default. So first thing first, before you add a user, make sure you have roles for that user. Okay. So roles is like what they can do in there, in your site. So for example, we have an administrator, and this is the person. So if you click edit, then you would see in the view, where is it? It's not looking for. So if we go to roles, right? Oh, there's some roles in here. Authenticated and anonymous, it's outside. So this is what administrator can do, right? And permissions. This is what I'm looking for, permissions. So by default, administrator can do whatever he wants. Okay, so it's very dangerous for production. So you can create, since this one is already created, you can edit this one, and you can create a user and assign this role. Anonymous user is for user that is outside user, that they don't log in to your site, and what they can do to your site. So there's a bunch of options in here, and just kind of explore it. Okay, what you want to give it. But normally for security, when I push this database to production, I normally disable this user 1 because hacker can get to it. Okay, change that to 0. And I normally don't use that. I normally use a different role. Alright, that's to increase security to your site. So that's for people. Reports is, to see what's the available updates. Okay, there's 83. Okay, and reports also have, recent log messages, like you have 404. Yeah, this is what you did. And you go to reports, field list of your entity. So it's like logs of everything, right? And this one, it tells you, oh, you need to have a config folder, you need to put the settings in here. It tells you almost the status of your site per se. Okay, so that's that for the Drupal graphical interface, and I hope you learned something. And don't forget to click like and subscribe, and that's it, guys.